Y'all can't be mad that certain women don't want to be called sis. You cannot demand.
This one is a little bit of a touchy subject for me. While I agree with what she's saying, I want to reinforce that I have a special place in my heart for my dolls and my bros. That being said, I have to reiterate, I've said this in other videos, that cultural diplomacy, cultural sensitivity is very important. Now, this is going to be a little bit complicated of an issue because in modern contexts, this is relatively new, barely 50 years, and it's not widespread. Um, so I have to refer a lot into Star Trek. The closest example we have on Earth here, now it's not as streamlined, but let me put it in this context. In the 80s, when we were starting to go into the opening market of China and Asia, the Westerners started to see a lot of problems in losing contracts. They noticed that, and it's documented, they noticed that their, their behaviors were losing clients, or suppliers rather. Things like handshaking, um, speaking in a loud voice, um, the way that they drank stuff, even how they placed their feet. In some cultures, putting the sole of your feet facing up towards a person is an insult, right? In some cultures, this means no and this means yes. Look it up. On and on and on. Things like that, right? So, cultural sensitivity is, even though you do not agree, um, you are sensitive enough to meet the person halfway. You're not necessarily doing as the Romans do, but you're acknowledging, not tolerating, not accepting, but acknowledging, and if your core belief system allows it, participating in the other person's culture. That being said, I understand the sensitivity around homophobia, transphobia. I am gay, and I do see all these type of problems. I'm also a spiritual person, so I understand the other half of that. While I disagree with a lot of the people within the religious Christian communities, um, in that homosexuality is bad, and I refer to that, my argument is you're following Christ. It's in the name. He summarizes the law here, Matthew 22:37 through 40. You can look it up. Additionally, all the books that usually are used to talk about people are usually the work of Paul, like Romans, Acts, and so on. All those are by Paul, right? I already talked about this before. He had PTSD. By the way that he's talking, the paranoia and all this stuff sounds a lot like PTSD, at least some other psychological issue. He was tasked with killing early Christian Jews, went through a lot of persecution, and the clincher, he rarely referred back to Jesus Christ in his teachings. So, all that to me lends me to believe that Paul was a man that leaned on his understanding. He has a lot of good stuff, but remember, we are Christians. For those who are Christians, we need to pass all that through the filter of Jesus Christ, right? So if Jesus didn't talk about it, odds are he may not have had a problem with it. All right. And if anything, Jesus, bottom line, like he says in Matthew 22:37 through 40, ultimately it's a relationship between you and God. Okay. I'm not discounting Christians. I'm just explaining how my particular culture, in respects to my sexual expression, and my faith constitute a different culture than, like, say, an evangelical heterosexual person. Although I do not agree, and I do hold my boundaries perfectly, there, and if they cross them, I will read them to filth, like I do with any atheist, with any other group. I will put up my boundaries, and I'll cross their boundaries if they cross mine. That being said, to do that by default and go against somebody else's wishes, especially because they did it first, that is, I'm sorry to children, but that is child logic. You are adults, you should be having a higher EQ, higher critical thinking, higher discernment. We can be sensitive to each other's cultures. For Christians, I do implore you, I understand what your beliefs are, and you're following Paul in the sense of proselytizing people. Christ said the same thing, but he said it with a key difference. He said you should spread the good news. He didn't tell you to qualify people or to judge their way of life or anything of that respect. The closest thing that you might be latching onto is love your God with all your might, all your love, and all your soul, or something to that effect. That is fine. You can view the world through that lens of not making things your idols, right? But as far as I'm remembering, and I need to go back and look at it, canceling people, um, being in other people's way of their own personal life, and all these, micromanaging people's lives, Jesus Christ didn't advocate for any of that. He said, yeah, spread the word and let it. I'm referring specifically to the seed analogy, parable. You spread your seeds of knowledge across the world to the four winds. Some may fall upon rocks, some among thorns, and some um, among good soil. Your task is not even to move the seeds from the rock or from the thorns to the good soil. That's essentially what you're trying to do when you're showing your love and trying to convert people. He didn't tell you to do that. He just said throw it to the winds. And he also said, if a town does not accept your teachings, walk away and shake off your sandals. So you can be diplomatic about how you proselytize. But at the end of the day, if they don't want to hear about it, Jesus told you, move on, right? Same thing for the other side. If a person like this comes along, you are within your boundaries with your rights to say, you know what, I understand you believe this, but please stop. And as Christians, you need to stop. Consent is consent is consent. In so many words, that's what Jesus advocated for with that parable about the sandals. So we all need to start raising our own discernment, our critical thinking, and start treating each other with the respect that we are due. In the terms of pronouns, there's nothing prohibiting you from telling them, okay, you want to be called they, them, fine, I'll call you that. There's nothing preventing you that. That's something that a lot of people in power within the religious community are advocating because of this following of Paul. You can be respectful and follow God. There is no either or here. I don't know why you're so inclined to believe that. So let's all try to work together. If you don't want to associate with people like me, that's fine. But be respectful when you do come across us, right? You don't have to, you can say, you know what, I don't believe in that. Can I call you by something else? That is perfectly fine.